the thought is going to seem real extreme. So I'm putting that out there because it's on my mind. I have to put it out here this way. And it's an extreme idea, right? But I want to put it out there this way. So the drug crack cocaine arrives in our neighborhood, 79403, and it is whoo, it is it is sweeping blocks, right? Uncles, cousins, people all of a sudden they what we call smoked out, and you knew them, right? You knew who was crackheads, and as kids, we observed this happening, and all of a sudden people just start changing. They start. This is not funny, but I can't help but like tell it like this. We had people out there that all of a sudden start walking around looking like zombies, like they were on something, right? And so for kids, we were expected to process that. Just last year you were at the Christmas, get together, and then now you looking like you didn't miss several meals. Mm-hmm. And you don't look healthy. And then I remember my grandmother, like, anyhow, so not to get off track. So we saw people go from normal to abnormal overnight when this drug crack cocaine came around. And everybody wanted a piece of it, right? Everybody wanted a piece of it. Because it had the possibility to generate so much money, right? Like, if you, I don't know how the numbers work, but you get you can spend $100 and you can make 200, and then you can spend $500 and make like 1,500, just depending on how well you cut the crack, right? It's just crazy. It sounds unbelievable, but this is like what kids really witness and go through, like real life, right? And so, apparently the white cocaine gets turned into this, and you can basically make a, wait for it, you can take this powdered product, you mix it with some artificial ingredients. Artificial is key. You mix it with some artificial ingredients, baking soda. Some of y'all help me because I know y'all know. Whatever the other ingredients is, and you cook it to a just right temperature, you will be able to multiply your product in droves. Droves. So that one bag of cocaine that you just pay, let's say $100 for it. And y'all, I can't do the math because obviously I've never been a successful drug dealer. But you do the math, and so wherever they getting this white part from, they give it to them and say, but if you cook it this way, you can multiply it, kind of sell it as a knockoff, like a Dollar Tree version of it. And we guarantee you they gonna come back, because all of us like the Dollar Tree. The Dollar Tree got something to offer for any get together, And for me, still in my 6-figure career days, I visited the Dollar Tree, And so this Dollar Tree version of cocaine comes around and it sweeps blocks. We now starting to see zombies walking around our neighborhood, right? We had a zombie that lived with us, right? He went from being the happiest uncle to we loved him, hugged him, everybody, handsome, probably could have had any woman he wanted, beautiful kids, right? But somehow he got a hold to that Dollar Tree cocaine that was being dispersed by none other than our brothers, cousins, sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews, and sometimes strollers. So everybody was dispersing it to everybody's cousin, uncle, whatever. We didn't sell to our own usually. There was some people that was super savage and would even sell it to their own, knowing that one hit and you are hooked. Absolutely hooked. You cannot get off the hook unless there's a divine intervention. But once you get that one high, I've never tried the drug myself, but once you get that one high, you are hooked. And you're going to keep coming back because you're trying to seek out that first high. And it feels like Ah, that wasn't good enough. I think it was a little bit better. And so you keep coming back and you spending $20 here, $20 here. That was what the rocks cost back in the day. So the point that I'm trying to make is this drug swept through blocks and blocks and blocks of 79403, ruining families, destroying kids, and all because they took this powder cocaine that usually can be in natural system in 15 minutes. You get your high, you move on, right? All right, I can function. Is how, I guess, how they use it. I don't know how it's used because I've never tried it. But if you take that same drug and you put some artificial ingredients in it and bake it up a little bit, certain temperature, you immediately multiply and become the man or the woman or the main chick of the man who everybody respects. And this is what we processed as 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old children, right? Touching, physically being in possession of crack cocaine. Playing with our cousins the game of dope dealer and crackhead, right? You never wanted to be the crackhead in the game, right? And I don't even know how we made it up, but it was a thing. And the gold medal flour my cousin reminded me of, she was like, yeah, we used to put gold medal flour in sandwich baggies and we would pretend that it was like cocaine and stuff, and we would cut little things up like to pretend they were rocks, because we always, I swear, it sounds like a joke, but it's so true. As proper as I'm talking right now, it's so true. But so anyhow, that's what we would normalize. I mean, it was just a thing. Like, our mamas dated drug dealers. It ain't no secret. Well, it ain't no more. But if you lived in 79403, you knew it, right? Anybody else out there, they didn't give 2 cents. The only reason why we're telling this story is because we're saying that there might be a side of the world that doesn't think that's quite normal. Use your best judgment. Discernment, as the Bible would call it. But now I'm going to switch gears. So you sell crack, you're going to be in more trouble than the people who sell cocaine. You know why? Because crack's really bad. Cocaine's bad, but crack is really, really, really bad because it's made with artificial ingredients. So you're punished. You're super punished. All right. Let's go down aisle number 7. Aisle number 7 is the aisle with all of the snacks that contain artificial ingredients. And you know what? Because your baby's daddy, husband, or whatever has gotten caught up because he got caught selling that crack cocaine, he's gone. We're going to provide you with government assistance. And with this government assistance, my sister, hold up, just wait, there's more. Don't go. It's like this contest, right? Who can give you the most to keep your attention? And so they say, sister, don't feel bad. You can come get food stamps as long as you keep having babies. Because at a certain age, we're going to cut your babies off and say, oh, they grown now, go get your own. But if you keep having babies, you can keep getting money from us. Right? And I need you to know, sister, this comes with some terms and conditions, right? Like, you go on The Price is Right and you win all of this money in the final round, and then you get to the end and they like, okay, it's going to be $3,500 in taxes to take the prizes that you just won. And you go, well, I'm broke. I don't have $3,500. If I did, I wouldn't be watching The Price is Right, right? And so they tell you, well, we got some things that we can work out. We can, if you sign these terms and conditions, we'll let you leave with the prizes, but only under these terms and conditions. So crack cocaine came with its terms and conditions, right? We get in trouble for selling it to our community because it kills our community, because it's really, really bad, right? Like, it's not as bad as cocaine, but it's worse. So don't do it. Don't do drugs. Say no to them. Okay, even though somebody's home ec teacher had to teach us how to do it. right? It'd just pop up, and all of a sudden, woo, everybody knows how to cook crack cocaine. All of a sudden, everybody knew how to cook crack cocaine like they knew how to cook ramen noodles, right? All of a sudden, it just became the thing that you knew how to do. Girls learned how to sew in home ec class. If you went to estacado, we learned how to stitch, thread a needle. And our boys who didn't decide to come to high school, who started dropping out early, they learned how to cook crack cocaine. But back to aisle number 7, because I need to land the plane. Back to aisle number 7. Aisle number 7 contains all of these foods that contain artificial flavors. Now, according to many proven studies, and even the FDA saying some of these chemicals have been banned, do not use them because it is proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. And if there is a shadow of a doubt, it's very little, so you probably want to just roll with it, that cause cancer and these other diseases. So stop putting them in products right now. Right? But not everybody has to follow that rule. So back on aisle 7, you may consume with our money that we're giving you while your man is locked up. You may consume with your food stamps all of these items that are only available in stores, in zip codes like you live in. Because if you want a Whole Foods or some kind of farmer's market, you're going to have to go out of your way to get it. Right? We're going to appease you and we're going to put a few things in there, but these things are only as good as your education. Because if your education is not up to knowledge to say turmeric and ginger do this for your diet, we only got a small section of that available near something that ain't really good for you, something that is full of artificial flavors. So one has to think there's two systems, right? Because I was really lenient when I gave the example of just the store. Like, they have proven that these foods make us really, really sick. Really sick. Not a little sick, but really, really sick. Like, what were you thinking? Why would you produce that? Fried Twinkies sick. Words on ingredients that we absolutely cannot pronounce, and we consume them every day because it's convenient. It is in my neighborhood and the prices are, not the best, but it's worth it. But I don't want to put every person in that bucket and assume that, the Fiestas in my mom's neighborhood of 75146. I don't want to put every person in that bucket because there are some people that are shopping responsibly, right? Because, even though they have some of these ingredients in these stores that have proven to reverse the side effects of all of these artificial ingredients that have been put in us, they're only as good as our knowledge. And if we're not looking that information up, that's why the section for that particular thing is so small. So if you're confused about what to grocery shop for, in my non-medical opinion, start looking for the things that have a very small space in the store and Google them, right? Because in our neighborhoods, they weren't filling our stores with things that were healthy for us. They were filling our neighborhoods with approving businesses like Wiley's Barbecue. What was the best barbecue sandwiches? Burgers. Oh my God, everything, right? And at some point we got liquor stores down the street. We got Quicko that had the best fried burritos. Who knows how old that grease was that our burritos were being fried in. But man, when I tell you, we had, and in some places fast food wise, not the churches, but some places would even accept our food stamps, right? They wasn't supposed to, but there was kind of like this underground code that we could, right? I remember being with my uncle when he did that. So, when you think about the stores having the ability to sell us things that have been proven to make us sick, to make us be addicted, to make us overweight, to make us tired, to make us grumpy, to make us sad, to even make us happy sometimes if they sell alcohol and liquor. To think that those stores are allowed to sell us artificial ingredients and it's legal, but my brother next door sold something that had artificial ingredients and you send him away for life. If one was to pull all the way up, whose evil is worse? Y'all were both trying to make a buck. You use the law to help you keep the advantage. Some of the most richest food corporations sell us poison. But you don't have to eat it if you don't want to, right? It's your choice. It is your choice. Just like crack is people's choice. According to, right? And we both know that the first hit of a piece of crack is as addictive as trying to eat just one Lay's potato chip. You can't do it. But you can keep selling us Lay's potato chips that you know cause people to be addicted and has chemicals that cause people to want more and more and more of it. But because your chemical and your artificial ingredient has been legalized by the government, the FDA, you get away with it. And you know that your chemicals affect mostly my people because your people on that side of town, what we call white side, they had knowledge and they know that they should be buying the organic type of snacks, right? So they had the knowledge to know that some of these ingredients and the stuff that they selling ain't good. That's why they put Whole Foods and stuff like that on the other side of town, because those people have the money to pay for that kind of stuff. But meanwhile, since your man is gone, we're going to give you a little bit of extra money. As long as you keep having babies, we'll keep giving you money, how much ever you need right now. The more you have, the more we'll give you. All you got to do is just keep reproducing. All right? We know the daddy ain't going to be around. And maybe you that kind of down chicken, you just going to wait for him. Maybe he got multiple baby mamas when he goes in, right? But you just hang in there, right? Because, this is just the way the law is. And we on the other side of the tracks who have legalized artificial ingredients to poison us, right? Whether it's by accident or not. I'm not one of those type of people. I don't study that well. But I do know enough to know that as an Uber driver myself, I was Uber driving in Kansas City at one point during my down period of my life. I was Uber driving in Kansas City, picked a gentleman up in my Uber Select from the Kansas City airport. He was a foreigner. I want to say he told me he was originally from somewhere in Asia. That's all I remember. But he had been in the States for 20 something plus years. And Kansas City has the meat plant. So he worked for the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, but it was the he worked in the meat side of things. So I don't remember what that was. Anyhow, so I'm driving him to his location. He needed to go to the company. And he asked me, did I have any recommendations? It was a setup. He asked me, do I have any recommendations of a good place to eat? He's been traveling all day. Any good recommendations? So naturally, Kansas City is known as a place for barbecue, right? Kansas City is known as a place for barbecue. You go to Kansas City, you get barbecue, and it's basically they'll ask you like, who has the best barbecue, Kansas City or Texas, right? So you go to Kansas City for the barbecue, and so naturally I say, well, if you're into barbecue, There's I really particularly care for KC Joe's is one of mine. But I said, if you like a little bit more upscale, um, we would go to this place called I ain't advertised now. So anyhow, I named in order the ones that I thought were pretty legit. And the guy from the Food and Drug Administration who was over meat handling and product quality, right? He was the person that oversaw how the animals were being treated, how meat was being processed, and quality checks. He was over quality checks, right? And when I recommended barbecue, he was like, no, what else you got? I don't eat meat. And I said, what? You don't eat meat? And I'm an Uber driver. I'm almost to his destination. And he was like, no, I don't eat meat. And I was like, you work for them and you don't eat meat? And he was like, no, I see what they do to that stuff. There's no way I would eat that. He works for him. He was an executive, right? He knew better. And I'm sure his salary was pretty high because he was dressed pretty nice. Plus, only companies with money send their employees on road trips. I don't know how many people live in 79403 that work for Burger King or Quicko or churches that get to go on company trips. So dude clearly was on to something. He was like, oh no, I don't eat that. What vegan places do you have? That's what he asked me. And you know what? That was 2017, I guess. 2017. And I still kept eating my steaks. Like I didn't even let that bother me. Red meat it is. Ruth Chris. I mean, so anyhow, the point is, if nothing else, it's like our men and fathers and uncles and cousins and sometimes even the women got caught up, right? They start getting sent to jail because they took a drug that was illegal. Okay, no doubt. Like cocaine, the powder is illegal. But cocaine, the crack is really illegal, right? So both drugs supposedly are outlawed because how addictive they are. So if you get caught selling those drugs, you're in deep trouble, child. Okay? Because the FDA does not authorize those kind of drugs because they're just too much on people. But there's levels to it, right? Then it was into this First Step Act, right? But by now, for us, 70s, 80s, and even 60s babies, definitely 90s and 2000 people, like a lot of those kids are now growing up without their parents or dads or whatever because some of them got caught up, because of what zip code they had to survive in. And so because that drug law was so stiff, it's too late for a lot of people. Now y'all are realizing through the First Step Act was like cocaine is bad, but crack was really bad, but it was kind of unfair to give that community that much time because they used artificial ingredients. And it made it worse for the community. Do we not agree that all drugs are bad, or are they? Because we now know from science that there are chemicals in the foods that we eat that are just as bad as the drugs that y'all charge people crimes for, make people guilty of, right? So I guess it's an ugly comparison, but when you pull back, it's generational. Because if you come from this zip code, you learn these behaviors, these ways of surviving, especially if your zip code is marginalized, vulnerable, whatever you want to consider it. Your opportunities to see better are limited. So if you happen to be dropped off in this zip code under these conditions, your life is going to start off a little bit worse than everybody else's that are not in your same condition. However, there's an asterisk. The kid who got dropped off in the, let's say, wealthier conditions, maybe that kid, girl or boy, was still in a very, what cancel culture would consider a broken home. Like, there could be rich kids born in broken homes, but these rich kids that are born in broken homes work for these food companies that are producing things that are keeping y'all wealthy enough where you can still go to the best schools and learn how to do what daddy does later on in life, if you so choose. But because we got connections, depending on your zip code, I might be able to hook you up and send you in a different direction. Maybe acting, music, singing. Maybe you follow in my footsteps, right? So because of your zip code, you get access to things that kids in this other zip code don't necessarily get. So if it was a football game, it would be like the kickoff return. If your kicker punts it off just right, if it lands in the end zone, they automatically put it at the 20, right? But if it goes out of bounds, there's an advantage because allegedly the kicker didn't kick it just right. So it bounced out of bounds. So now we get to put you at instead of the 20-yard line, maybe you get to the 25-yard line. I'm going to fact check, right? But regardless, you have an advantage if you got a good kicker. Now, if you in this zip code and your kicker kind of suck, his legs kind of tired and he can't kick as far, and every time he kicks, whoever this person is that's kicking for us as kids growing up in this situation, when they kick, for whatever reason, the other team gets to it, and then they get to it on the 1-yard line. So we got to start off at the 1-yard line, but we both know that we got to get to the other end if we ever want to have a place in this society. So from the beginning, the playing field is not leveled. It is not level. But if you really pull up and look at it, in this situation that we grew up in, we watched crack cooked. The same crack that would later send our uncle to the grave at some point because the crack and the alcoholism just took over. It would send both all of our men into that life where that's how they needed to make a living because that is what that zip code taught them to do. And then you kick over to Beverly Hills or San Francisco Valley or some of these places where they're developing software that is addictive and they're teaching their kids how to pick up and follow their footsteps, right? And then you get those people who have kids who are born into the pharmaceutical industry or born into families that have stocks into pharmaceutical industry, and then they're teaching their kids the trade. They teach their kids the trade so that their kids can continue to have a competitive advantage on the field. And they well understand how the trade works. If you get people to eat this, drink this, taste this, experience this just once, they will want more. Well, is it good for them, Dad? Nobody cares about that. They make their own choices. It's up to them. Nobody makes them take it. Nobody makes them eat it. But if they do, we make money, son. Are you into this business or not? So you have the kids and it becomes generational for them to continue that experience with their family where they keep it in the family. Meanwhile, starting at the 40. Group over here whose kicker, had their own aces coming into the game can't kick quite as well because her legs got diabetes or whatever. So he's always kicking where the other team got just enough time to get to it and down it at the 1, and now you got to try to keep from getting a safety. We get locked up because we took a drug that swept blocks and blocks and blocks, not just on 79403, but in multiple other places. Swept blocks like crazy. New Jack City, Menace to Society, crazy. way back when we was first able to understand the meaning of like warfare on the streets outside of ours. Through movies, they told us this was happening. It was like based on true stories. And then that naturalized it for us. Seeing Menace to Society, New Jack City, and all of these TV shows, right? It normalized it. It made it look like that what we were doing was kind of okay, except you didn't want to be that one dude in the movie got shot. But they did use the movies to show us that if you live this life, you're going to be like Ricky, and you could end up dead. You could be the kid that was just an innocent bystander, right? But if you live this life, we're going to show you through these blockbuster movies that this is the consequence. So we're like trying to teach you in the movies, right? But we so fascinated by the chase of it, the thrill of it. Well, I learned my lesson from Menace to Society. I ain't gonna be like Ricky. I ain't gonna slip up because I'm gonna stay strapped. You know, whatever lesson we take from it, like we left with that, right? And we figured we could outsmart Ricky. So we see these movies and then we start to understand like, hey, this is just the way life is, right? Like other people are doing it. And of course, these are the movies that are being marketed to us. I never heard of It's a Wonderful Life until I was 43. And that's allegedly a classic. And I've seen it and I definitely would have liked to have watched it when I was a kid, but I never watched it until I was 43. So our kids and our brothers and our sisters and our aunts and our uncles grow up in these conditions where we are watching this drug take control of everybody we love. And not just the drug of crack, but the drug of alcohol. And those two things together create ACEs. Now we just coming off of slavery and oppression and the civil rights movement. We just coming off of that, right? We can't catch a break. It's Black History Month. We can't catch a break, right? So we just coming off of all of this trauma of being drugged over here, wrapped up on trees, paid less, beat when we tried to vote. Like we went through a little something. And the minute we get a chance to breathe through my grandparents, Mama and Papa, right? The minute we get a chance to breathe, right? Like, okay, now we have this foundation. We are free. Juneteenth, let's celebrate. Maybe we ain't all the way there, but, you know, at least we ain't slaves no more, right? At least we don't have to, like, you know, get beat if we quit a job, you know. In the slave days, you couldn't quit. What 2-week notice? I'm going to show you a 2-week notice. What 2-week notice? And so now when we got the ability to give our 2-week notice when white people pissed us off, boy, we start taking advantage of it, right? But we got our grandparents to step in, and now it feels like, okay, here's something. Now, my grandma, I think her Achilles heel must have been like cards and bingo, right? Cards and bingo was her thing, and so that made her happy, you know? And so that's how she would spend her time, and that's the grandmother that we learned, right? She could sew, she could cook, like she was fierce. Everybody loved her. And you know, that was the version of leadership that we were exposed to, if you will. So we were just coming off of, for us as kids in the 70s, we had no experience with, you know, racism, if you will. Like all of that stuff had somewhat passed by the time we were born, but they had just come off of it. So they were celebrating freedom, you know, clubbing a little bit here and there, but it wasn't what I can recall is like as bad as it is once it got to the 90s. And our grandparents set the stage, but then it was like the next generation, they was like, ooh, y'all went through that? Or we saw it a little bit, but we kind of it's kind of like the Y to the 2000 year, right? Like we made it past everybody thinking that the world was going to end at 2000, and now we can kind of relax a little and turn up a little bit more. And so I think our grandparents' kids, they started taking advantage of their newfound freedoms, right? Like they didn't ever have to be in locks and chains, if you will, but they not too far from it. So they got a little bit of freedom. And still their parents kind of like protective. We ain't gonna let you go. Like some of them, like my oldest auntie tells me she didn't get to have a boyfriend until she was like 16. So some of them, like, you know, still like was paying attention, but there was still a few families, just based on the timeline that I know from people who have expressed their stories to me, that there was still some people who was, even in those 50s and 40s, 1940s and 1950s, they were still doing stuff that was inappropriate, whether, you know, slanging on the side or, you know, doing whatever, touching kids, molesting kids, whatever. It was still going on then, but it was just kind of like less than it is now. Our grandmothers, our grandmother, they were just coming off of it. They were just coming off of it. The next generation got a little bit more freedom and started to like neglect what their parents had just come off of. And then because of their freedoms, you know, they started producing children, different daddies here and there, whatever. And so all of a sudden the mama papa relationship, the theory of like being with one partner broke down. I don't know how. I don't know how. All I know is what I saw did not look like mama and papa. You know, like my mom had 3 kids and there was 2 dads, 1 marriage. I mean, pretty much, and nobody's ashamed of it, right? But that was just kind of like how we evolved because we had more freedom, right? We had more freedom, and there was no more sneaking around, right? Because I understand based on some of these movies we saw, some of these slaves was having to sneak around if they wasn't like purposely trying to breed you, and so there was no more sneaking around, and so you didn't have to stick with just one person, you know, and so it wasn't a mama and papa. But then because, you know, alcohol started getting involved, weed was involved, clubs were involved, all the things that we know contain artificial ingredients were involved, those things we know to be true are addictive, right? And so because those 3 ingredients got involved, it opened the doors for more people to start engaging in entanglements outside of their marriages. So it just became like, you know, more acceptable versus taboo. So then it happened to the aunties or, you know, my grandparents' kids. And then by the time it got to us, what do you know? Let's see. Research says pull out the card, and if it was Steve Harvey, he would probably say the wrong thing, but it's not. And the research would pull out the card and say, yeah, we kind of saw this coming. This is no surprise to us. Actually, don't tell anyone. We think it was designed that way. Right? I told you it was going to sound kind of off, but so this research, but the only way for you to know this research is for you to be well enough to seek it. And the only way for you to be well enough to seek it, your mind has to be really, really clear. It's not over yet. To have a really, really clear mind, you need to be growing up in a very, very peaceful, healthy, loving, nurturing, encouraging, healthy environment. But if you don't grow up in those things, we're going to hold you accountable to the same people and the same standards to the people who were dropped off on the 40-yard line, who got all of that training ahead of time. Your zip code does not matter because you should have caught up. Where have you been? Under a rock? As a matter of fact, we were. That rock was 79403. So we learned, and it was exposed to me, that you can sell us a drug that kills us and get away with it. But if we sell a drug that kills us, we gonna get put away for it. You can sell us a drug that it's okay for you to sell us a drug that it's okay for you to sell us bad food, alcohol, cigarettes, you name it. Put fast food places on every corner, and y'all say loud and clear on some of y'all's products. It says loud and clear, warning: this product will kill you if consumed. And we so savage, we take it anyway. It's like holding a rattlesnake. Getting bit, but the poison is just taking longer to work. Not many people I know would pick up a rattlesnake knowing that if this rattlesnake bites you, you're probably going to die if you can't get help soon. And some of these packages of food and things that we buy say the exact same thing. The only benefit is you're just not going to die as fast, but you're going to die because of me. So it exposed this thing that we can't sell our own people drugs so that we can make money. Learning the only way we've been taught to learn, if we take a powdered product, we put artificial ingredients in it, and we cook it and bake it just this way, cut it up just this right, we can resell that to several people in our community, and we can keep the business in our own community. Our people were trying to keep the business in their own community. But no, somebody said that our drug was too bad. And our argument at that time was, well, people who don't want to take it don't need to take it. It's up to them. It's their individual choice if they do drugs. I'm just offering the product. I can't do my taxes on it because you say that the way that I do it is no good and it hurts people, right? So I can't do taxes legally, so I am trying to give back to the community. I'm investing in community centers. I'm doing stuff. So I'm trying to be responsible with the money. I just can't tell IRS about it because, they say it's illegal. But because I'm using artificial ingredients for a drug that we know is addictive, and I learned how to cut it up just right to give it back to my community, to keep the business in my community, I can't do it. Because if I do it, I'm going to get in trouble. But you can put those same ingredients that kill my people slower. Why is the way that you kill my people better than the way I kill my own people? Again, like you say, all they have to do is look into it. They shouldn't have to rely on us to tell them that these said foods aren't going to be good for you in the long run. People should look up their knowledge. It's the same thing that we was trying to say, my people was trying to say about why they were selling crack. Like, everybody ain't going to do it, but if you do it, it's up to you, right? Everybody have a choice. That's what you said about Doritos. And I like Doritos. I want to eat Doritos whenever I see them. But Doritos are bad for me. They do like crazy stuff to people's brains. Like, there's artificial ingredients in them that the FDA said y'all need to stop putting in food. But depending on what zip code you are in, your chances of being on the 40-yard line versus the 1-yard line determines how long it's going to take you to get to the other side, right? And so that knowledge you need to eat less of that thing that they knew about going into it, because they didn't have those type of ingredients readily available at the stores they shopped at, right? They could still get them, but most of them people kind of knew, no, honey, we're going to eat celery sticks today. Celery sticks are much better than those, right? And so because they were educated, they got the advantage, right? But over here, we're not educated, and depending on how long our stamps were, this is what we can afford. And we definitely going to go after the stuff that has artificial ingredients, because that tastes the best. Boy, that ice cream and stuff, that tastes the best. What organic ice cream? Give me that real stuff, the one with the whole milk in it. So we can take the artificial ingredients y'all put in our body, and it's acceptable because it's been approved by the none other than FDA. And if we really care about our bodies, then we go to the FDA website every other day to see, has anything new happened since I last visited. But how many of us are actually going to the FDA's website to say, hey, what was the last thing y'all been up to? How many of us even follow the FDA's page? Right? Because they telling us, hey, stop doing this. But just like we saw it on the package, the Surgeon General warnings, if you eat this, it will kill you. So, because y'all drugs warn us in print, it makes it okay for that drug to go in our body, and we know what it's going to do to us long term. Right? Because it's okay for that drug to go in my body, and because you put it in fine print, what if we had to put it in fine print, right? Like, would it have made it okay? Because it's killing the people the exact same way. And we know that child nutrition is a huge indicator of a child's performance in school, of a child's overall health. And we know that is a fact, like it's indisputable. And here we have schools, calling parents because their kid won't sit still long enough, and there's not enough special ed teachers to go around to teach teachers skills to help calm the nervous systems of kids who are constantly under stress at the house, whether it's nutritional stress or whether it's the stress of household dysfunction, but certain artificial flavors are allowed where others are not. And I think that is why we get to decide how we take our platform back in these zip codes. How do we re-educate ourselves and start doing more whole food type of situations, so that when our kicker is up to punt, we have a better advantage on the field. Because right now our kicker is in a wheelchair with diabetes, and they can't really take care of us if all them pork chops all year long then finally caught up to them and they didn't have to cut a couple of toes off. Or we can't have no people in the backfield punting like that. And if you think about it, the punters don't really do much. They come into the game and they punt, kickoff, punt, whatever it is, right? They have a very limited role and they have a very specific task in the game, right? You don't see them tackling, like they'll punt and go down, but it's really just up to the people that's in the front, because they practice for that. I really just need to keep my legs strong. That's how a punter sees it. But every once in a while, if the person on the other end gets the ball and starts running back, you'll see the punter join the game and all of a sudden try this really awkward tackle, if he ever has to do that. But the punter in the game of life is like the grandparents. The grandparents are there only to kick off. Here's the instruction, go. Good luck, you guys. I'm going to put it out there. But if our grandma is showing up in the wheelchair with one toe out of 10 left and overweight and can't really get up and kick, sometimes our ball's going to get kicked and automatically give the other side an advantage of where they get to place the ball. So what if we start changing what we put in our bodies, in our, not just our bodies, but our kids' body? What if we started talking to our kids differently when they messed up? What if we start talking to ourselves differently when we messed up? Would that increase our chances of having our grandma, grandpa, when they finally come in the game, be able to kick it off for us, so that we have a better advantage when we run into the defense? Like that is giving our grandparents the strength, us now, the strength to say, these are the things that we need to learn, understand, internalize, and make a lifestyle choice. These behaviors, because if we do it this way, it gives our kids a better chance at the playing field, but better chance of where the ball's going to be placed. Because right now the ball is being placed at the 1 yard line, and it's a ton of safeties happening, like tons. And if safeties were people going to prison or being killed, like it's a ton of safeties. And safeties are supposed to be rare, but not in our hood, depending on who you playing. You playing the Jets, you probably safeties, people safeties guaranteed. I don't know, shame, but there's some sports teams that just really didn't hold up their end of the bargain, and it happens every year. So being able, if we want to stop complaining about the system that has openly said you can't sell your artificial flavors to people, but we can, right? And we mad at the system. Why not start feeding ourselves better material? Why don't we take the artificial ingredients out of our communities and out of our thoughts? Our thoughts of not being able to do better than this, that is an artificial ingredient. It does not belong there. And I see it as an artificial ingredient, but that artificial ingredient is there because it was a seed that was planted on the day you were born. For me, right? They was just coming off of civil rights. They were just coming off of World War II, the Depression. And then this drug got dropped off. So couldn't catch a break. And once this drug caught wind of everybody, it was over. And it made it worse. And now we killing each other. We fighting each other. Aces are having aces with mental problems who going around trying to fight everybody, who think that, pulling a gun out is the solution to life. And so it progressively gets worse, right? And now we're filming it. We have people literally filming killing people. That is how popular it has gotten. That is how normalized it has gotten. Because of the conditions we are born in. Because of what is put into us while we are in the conditions that we're born in, by way of food, drugs, alcohol. Those things together, combined with the conditions that we're born in, you will never land on midfield. You will always be at the 1 yard line, constantly collecting penalties. Constantly trying to catch up with the other side, but constantly making penalties. Flags on the play because nobody was there to show you a different way. But the other side, they can teach their kids to get into the same industry that causes people illnesses, and it is 100% legal. 100% legal. Now, our goal is to make sure that we understand the fine print, and the more we understand the fine print, the more we can take control of our next step. But somebody got to be interested in the fine print, because if you're not interested in the fine print, you're going to miss out.